Ghost does not start like a romance. It starts like a normal life that thinks it has time. A New York loft. A couple building something real. A future that feels locked in. Then, the floor drops, and love gets stuck doing the one thing it cannot do in real life: stay. But behind the pottery, the jokes, the tears everybody remembers, this film was holding grief with a steady hand. Patrick Swayze didn't just audition. He cracked the room open and took the role. Whoopi Goldberg nearly lost Oda Mae, until Swayze drew a line, and the movie found its true pulse. And the pottery scene turned into a pop culture fever, spreading everywhere until everyone caught it. These are 10 weird facts about Ghost, the love story that sold softness to the world, then proved it could hit like a thriller. Number 1. Sam Wheat should have belonged to someone else's career. Before Ghost locked in its most famous face, the role drifted through Hollywood like a prize nobody agreed how to hold. Tom Hanks, Tom Cruise, Michael J. Fox, Paul Hogan. Each name turns the same story into a different movie. The biggest swing was Bruce Willis, offered the part while he and Demi Moore were married in real life. He said no. The idea of a romance where the guy is dead did not click. Later, he regretted it, and the irony only sharpened when he starred in The Sixth Sense. The role that mattered still had one believer. Screenwriter Bruce Joel Rubin wanted Patrick Swayze, not for toughness, but for grief. Rubin had watched Swayze talk about losing his father and the weight it left behind, and he saw the one thing Ghost cannot fake: a man who can love on screen like it costs him something. Director Jerry Zucker did not buy it. He had seen Roadhouse. He saw an action guy. Rubin has said Zucker's first reaction was basically "over my dead body." So Swayze did the only thing that changes a room. He came in and performed the final farewell scene, right there in Zucker's office. No charm, no pitch, just a man saying goodbye to the only person he cannot hold anymore. Zucker later said everyone was sitting there with tears in their eyes, even though they already knew the ending. That is how Ghost found Sam. One red that made the director stop fighting, and once that door opened, it forced the next fight. Who gets to carry the movie's oxygen while the grief stays real? Number 2. Oda Mae could have been erased before she ever opened her mouth. Whoopi Goldberg read the script, wanted the role, and still had to wait while the people with money got nervous. They considered going smaller, safer, even talked about casting an unknown, like you can hide a character who has to walk in and keep the whole movie breathing. Because Ghost is not only romance and grief, it is also timing. Oxygen, a voice that can cut through the darkness without turning the story into a joke. Patrick Swayze did not let it slide. He backed Goldberg early and kept backing her while the room stalled. Not a quick yes, a long drag of hesitation. Months where the choice sat there unresolved, like the film was trying to move forward with its lungs half closed. Other names circled the part: Tina Turner, Oprah Winfrey, big personalities, big gravity. But the movie does not need big, it needs specific. A hustler who starts as a con artist, gets yanked into something real, and stays funny without snapping the emotion in half. That is the lane Goldberg owned. When the decision finally locked, the payoff came with teeth. Goldberg won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress, and years later she has said she believes she only got the role because Swayze fought for her. She thanked him publicly, calling him a stand-up guy, like the Oscar itself is chained to that early act of loyalty. Number 3. Ghost could have collapsed from the first misunderstanding. Jerry Zucker's name was built on speed, airplane, top secret. The kind of comedy where the joke is the engine and nothing is allowed to get heavy. Then he picks a love story where the main character is dead and the audience has to believe every tear or the whole thing turns into a sketch. It was his first time directing alone, and it was a genre jailbreak. Not just for him, but for the movie. Because the script was obsessed with what happens after we die. Written by Bruce Joel Rubin in the same era he wrote Jacob's Ladder. That is not a playful headspace. That is a script that stares back. The only way it works is if everyone agrees on one rule. The love is real. The grief is real. The jokes are not the point. They are oxygen. Rubin was nervous handing that kind of material to a director famous for gags. Then he met Zucker and felt the alignment. Treat the emotion straight. Let humor leak in only when the story needs air. That decision is why Ghost never winks at you. It does not make fun of its own premise. It commits. And the comedy sits inside the commitment instead of on top of it. And that is what rewired Zucker's reputation. Not because he proved he could be serious, because he proved he could hold serious without losing control of the audience. That is the real trick of Ghost. It is not a comedy director trying drama. It is a comedy director trying not to break the person who has to live inside the grief. Number 4. Molly Jensen was the role that could have made Ghost look ridiculous. The part had an A-list orbit around it. Molly Ringwald, Michelle Pfeiffer, Meg Ryan, Julia Roberts. Faces that could have turned the movie glossy, cute, or too young. But the story does not survive cute. Someone has to make grief feel immediate, not performed. That is why it landed with Demi Moore. Then she arrived and broke the image anyway. Moore was cast while she still had long hair, but when she showed up to start filming, it was gone. A shorter, cleaner cut. Not the expected romantic lead look at the end of the 80s when everything leaned big and styled. Jerry Zucker reportedly did not love the change at first. It was a risk you do not ask permission for. It is a decision that forces everyone else to adjust. And that haircut did something the script needed. It made Molly feel grounded, adult, raw, like a woman living in the real world, not in a fantasy that can float on vibes. Moore also did not pretend the premise was safe. At a 2013 AFI night at the movie's screening, she said her first reaction was that it could go horribly wrong. A romance where the guy is dead, comedy folded into grief, and a tone that has to stay sincere without tipping into corny. It is the kind of pitch that either becomes a classic or becomes a punchline. What saved it, she said, was alchemy. Cast, crew, key hands like editor Walter Murch and cinematographer Adam Greenberg, and that unplanned magic that happens when the right people lock in at the same time. But that still left one problem. If Molly ever felt theatrical, the movie would fail. And if the man she trusted felt obvious, it would fail even faster. Number 5. Carl Brunner works because he does not look like a threat. He looks like the kind of guy you would trust with your keys. Tony Goldwyn was not a locked-in name when Ghost came together. He was still in the grind, trying to land something that would stick. And the way he got Carl is almost too clean. His wife was the production designer on the film, and she kept telling him the same thing like it was a secret door sitting open. They still have not cast Carl. So Goldwyn pushed. Hard. Not once. Not politely. He hammered his agent until he got an audition, and then the tape actually got watched. Even when he won the role, Jerry Zucker reportedly had a doubt, saying Goldwyn seemed too nice, which is the point. Carl has to feel safe. He has to feel like a friend until the movie turns him into the hand that breaks everything. There is also the part that makes the hustle feel like destiny. Goldwyn did not just wander into Hollywood. He was born inside it. His parents were producer Samuel Goldwyn Jr. and actress Jennifer Howard, and his grandfather was Samuel Goldwyn Sr. That does not make you talented, but it does mean the industry is not some faraway kingdom. It is the air around your house. Then Ghost punished him for doing the job too well. Goldwyn later told a story about being in a restaurant where a waitress refused to serve him and kept staring like he had personally betrayed her. Then it clicked. She recognized him from Ghost. She hated Carl so much she could not separate the face from the act. When she realized who he actually was, she apologized on the spot. That is the proof the villain landed. Not scary, not loud, just believable enough to make strangers hold a grudge. Quick pause. This is the movie that makes betrayal feel personal. If that worked on you, hit like. And if you want more deep dives into films that pull that off, hit subscribe. Alright, now watch what they did next. Number 6. Ghost sells the afterlife like it is happening on your block. Not on a backlot, not in a fake city. In real New York air, where the streets look wet, the nights feel heavy, and the cold will expose you in one breath. That realism came with a problem so small, it could kill the illusion. Winter night shoots make mouths betray bodies. You see vapor. You see heat leaving a person. For Sam Wheat, that is a mistake you cannot unsee. A ghost is not supposed to fog the air. The second you catch it, he stops being the afterlife. He becomes Patrick Swayze on a freezing sidewalk. So the crew had to thread a needle. Keep New York real. Keep the texture. Keep the streetlight glow. Keep the actors cold enough to look honest. But keep the ghost clean. No visible breath. No accidental proof of life sneaking into the frame. And then the film does the opposite flex. It gives you something so real it turns into a fantasy you can purchase. Sam and Molly's Soho loft at 102 Prince Street is an actual location, and it later went up for sale like the movie left the door unlocked. Over 4,000 square feet, 3 bedrooms, 3.5 baths, a price tag in the 8 figures. The pottery scene, translated into listing language. Ghost is built on a contradiction the camera has to obey. Hide the smallest physical detail to keep the magic alive, but anchor the world in a real address so the heartbreak feels permanent. Number 7. That pottery wheel scene is not a moment. It is a trap. It looks like romance, soft light, warm hands, clay turning under their palms like the world is finally slowing down. But the second it landed, it stopped belonging to Ghost. It became a set of instructions the culture could not stop following. Stand behind someone, guide their hands, play the song, let the room pretend it is sincere. And the reason it spread is brutal. The image is too clean. You can recreate it in a dorm room, a sitcom set, a commercial, a joke. You do not need context. You just need the pose. So parody did what parody always does. It did not improve it. It turned it into a shortcut. The Naked Gun 2.5 spoofed it in 1991 with Leslie Nielsen and Priscilla Presley, leaning into the same truth the original flirts with. This is intimate for 2 seconds, and then it is absurd if you stare at it. The joke lands because the audience already knows the scene before the clay even spins. Years later, Community treated it like an infection. They built an entire gag around a zero ghost tolerance policy, warning students not to reenact it and not to hum the music, like a single note could trigger a spontaneous pottery hookup in the hallway. Then the reference loop got meaner. 2.5 Men did its own version in 2014 with Ashton Kutcher. Demi Moore's real-life ex-husband ended up recreating the most iconic romantic image of her career as a joke. A scene that once sold love, now selling embarrassment, on purpose. That is how deep Ghost got into people. The movie ended, but the pose survived by borrowing a voice older than the film itself. Number 8. Ghost makes the music feel inevitable. Like the romance and the melody were born together, then sealed into one memory. But Unchained melody is older than the romance, older than the hairstyle, older than the entire world Ghost lives in. It was written for a 1955 prison film literally titled Unchained. The movie slipped into the past. The song did the opposite. It kept surviving, passing from voice to voice, decade to decade, like it was waiting for the right image to latch onto. Ghost gave it that image. The Righteous Brothers recording was already a classic, but the film turned it into a 1990 obsession. It came back. It got re-released. The duo re-recorded it. And suddenly, a song from a forgotten prison drama was sitting at number 1 on the Billboard US Adult Contemporary chart in 1990. Bill Medley said he never expected one movie to turn the track into a monster. Ghost did not use a famous song. It handed a famous song a new body. Number 9. Ghost looks like the kind of movie studios used to underestimate. A romance, a tearjerker, a story where the hero is dead for most of it. The expectation is simple. Nice hit, strong date night money. Then it fades behind louder movies. That is not what happened. Ghost was made for roughly $22 million and detonated into a global monster, climbing to about $505.7 million worldwide. It finished as the highest grossing film of 1990 worldwide, beating even Home Alone, which landed around $476 million. The part that feels unreal is the stamina. Ghost did not spike and disappear. It stayed in the top 5 at the weekend box office for 19 straight weekends. It kept printing money long enough that Home Alone did not pass it worldwide until February 1991. That kind of run does something to Hollywood math. It told studios that a love story aimed at women could hit like an action event. It also shoved Demi Moore into a new tier. She was already known, but Ghost turned her into a financial engine, the kind of name studios build calendars around. The ripple is visible in the run that followed. A Few Good Men, Indecent Proposal, Disclosure, and by 1995 she was reportedly commanding a $12.5 million payday for striptease. Ghost did not just win a year. It changed what a blockbuster was allowed to look like. And when a movie bends the industry like that, the industry tries to bring it back. Every time. Number 10. Ghost ends the way it has to end. Final, personal, no loopholes. So the most aggressive thing Hollywood did afterward was pretend that ending was optional. In November 2013, a television series was announced through Paramount Television, with Akiva Goldsman and Jeff Pinkner attached to develop it. On paper, that is the kind of pairing that says, this is real, this is moving, this is happening. But the project never reached the screen. No episodes, no return, just headlines that evaporated, like the story itself refused to be stretched into weekly comfort. Then the second resurrection showed up, louder. Channing Tatum, through his company Free Association, secured the rights and has talked about remaking the film, including the idea of playing Sam. He has also said he would update elements he considers problematic stereotypes from the original, which means the new version is not just trying to replay the romance, it is trying to renegotiate the memory. Ghost is a movie about a love that will not stop reaching back. The franchise has been trying to do the same thing ever since. Bonus fact, Ditto is almost too small to be romantic. That is why why it works. Sam does not give Molly a speech. He does not try to sound poetic. He answers her love with a word that feels casual, like he is dodging the moment on purpose. Then Ghost turns it into a private code, a fingerprint, the one tiny sound that can slip through the noise and prove he is still there. And that detail was not invented for the script. Bruce Joel Rubin has said he used to answer his high school girlfriend the exact same way when she told him she loved him. Same word, same dodge. A real habit, lifted straight out of his past and dropped into the movie like a hidden confession. Then the film released, and the word stopped belonging to him. For years afterward, Patrick Swayze said women would walk up to him in public and ask him to say ditto, not I love you. Not a quote from the big scene, that one small answer. They wanted the shortcut to the feeling, a second of the romance in their own life spoken by the man who made it hurt. That is the strange legacy of Ghost. The biggest goodbye in the movie is carried by the smallest word, and people still go looking for it.
Tell her I love her.
He says he loves you.
Sam would never say that.
Ditto. Tell her ditto.
That was ditto. Ditto.
That's the quiet contradiction of Ghost. It looks like comfort, but it plays like a bruise. A romance that only works because the comedy keeps the scene breathing, and the grief stays unlit, right there in the frame. If you enjoyed these weird facts, hit like and subscribe. Then drop a comment and tell me what film we should do next. And if you want to keep this one close, you can grab it through the link below.